weekend are particularly gentle, particularly hopeful, particularly generous. That you find the prophet saying, "What do you want? If you're thirsty, come and drink. If you're hungry, come and eat. There's no price, there's no cost. Your God will feed you and hear you." The psalm reinforces this generosity of our God. Jesus brings it to action as he takes what seems too small, too little, a few barley loaves, and turns them into abundance for the thousands. And maybe the most hopeful of all, Paul, who says, what could possibly separate me from the love of God? We'll start there, because I think probably, at least somewhere in the back of our head, we've always heard this upside down, because that's how we think about our relationship with God. Like, do I love God? And if I love God, my love for God would be such that nothing could separate me from that love. But that is not what Paul's saying, right? He's saying that God loves me. Jesus was sent to love me. And what could possibly separate me? All of the evils in the world, this idiotic Satan, like, what power does he have against the love of God for me? The love that God gives me. And the love that God gives me in Jesus Christ, Paul says specifically, is his birth and life and death and resurrection. Everything that we celebrate and believe in, everything that makes us who we are as followers of Jesus, as Catholics, all of that comes to us as a free gift of the love of God. And we're invited to start from a place of incredible abundance and generosity, the abundant, generous gift of God. And that really changes everything. It is so easy to live our lives from a place of scarcity, and there's not enough, and we spend all of our energy on the little things that keep us from having time and energy and resources for the big things. We get upset with this or that, and we spend all of our energy with this stupid little thing that probably would ruin our lives. And that comes from this sense of scarcity, like somehow I'm not going to have enough. And Jesus says, do you have 5 barley loaves? We're going to make it work. It's going to be okay. I remember distinctly several years ago being on a college mission trip in the shanty towns coming up out of the hills of Lima. And one of the bishops there had started a summer camp for the children of the shanty towns because they had no place, no space, no psychological space to play. And so these children with no resources were gifted 2 weeks of summer camp every summer. And I was there in our summer, so it wasn't their summer, but they kind of developed a year-round program to continue following and supporting these children. And so there was like a weekend. And we were living in the summer camp, but the children came. And to watch them, that first meal, where there was all the food they could possibly want, they had to fight and elbow and stuff themselves and eat quickly. By the next morning, they realized that they were going to have everything they needed. And they didn't have to fight for it. And their lives were so much more expanded, so much more free. They could run and play soccer and enjoy themselves, knowing that what they needed was given to them already. And in our own lives, of course, we have to do the math. We've got to make our budget work. We can't spend our money and energy on things that only waste away our lives. But the fact is, we're incredibly blessed. We have everything we need. People around the world who walk for miles a day just to get a little bit of almost clean drinking water. We have so much incredibly clean water that we won't drink. We buy bottled water. But so much incredibly drinkable water that we just spray it all over our lawns. They must think we're insane. And yet, we sometimes have this sense of scarcity that they might not even have, right? A sense of scarcity that makes us small. And Jesus says, no, you have 5 barley loaves. Let's give some away. One of our parishioners was recently on the news uh, because she'd started a not-for-profit, just as a very young woman, started a little not-for-profit, Hope in Every Hallway, to make sure that people who needed food had food. And I was listening to her interview just because she's one of ours, and she was talking about just having a few dollars here or there or whatever. I think they cut her a check for $5,000 from the interview that she put entirely towards this work. And I can't help but notice sometimes when I open a refrigerator to see what's waiting for the poor today, some of them have the labels of Hope in Every Hallway on them. And it's the kind of generosity that takes a couple of $100s and doesn't say, wow, this isn't even enough to fill my gas tank. It's enough to buy a loaf of bread. It's enough to buy some ham. It's enough to maybe just take my own mayonnaise, right, and make some sandwiches and bag them up and make sure that somebody who's hungry, maybe even hopeless, will be able to enjoy that gift of God's love. A generosity that God invites us into, and a gift, His love, that is greater than we could possibly need and greater than anything will ever take away.